Hey guys, I promised, I've been promising you guys a video. I'm trying to figure out where my camera is. I don't really videotape myself much. So I promised bird in a basket, also known as Tittibhasana. And it's not such an easy pose to get into because you have to, make sure you have nice rotation in the hips. And I find, even though I'm flexible and I'm strong enough to get into the pose, that it's uncomfortable to get into it when I'm forcing it. So I just wanted to show you guys a couple ways to get into it. But meanwhile, you're really going to be getting some nice hip flexor openers and some lower back opening, and you should feel pretty good. Gosh, I don't know where to look, sorry. I'm like looking everywhere just to make sure I get all the full spectrum of everyone. So hopefully this will help you. I'm going to be using 2 blocks to help with the inversion at first, just so you guys can see that that's very useful. It's very helpful. And omit anything you don't want to do, so you can stay longer for anything you want to do. You can do it more than once if you like. This is just my personal experience in how I like to help facilitate opening up my hips, because they need help. I do a lot of squats and a lot of lunges. And I just did a step class, and I just taught a CX class, a core class. So I'm really tight right now, so I really need this. Alrighty, so here we go. There's no music, and I'm going to do minimal talking. This is really just if you want to follow along. So again, you might want 2 blocks or 2 big books just for elevation. You're just using it to elevate yourself, to help to bring the ground to you rather than you going down to the ground, especially when you're tight. It's very helpful. All right, guys, so I'm going to go into it. And I like to start off nice and low, because I just don't like heated poses. I already work with a lot of heat, and I just feel like, kind of grounding down and letting myself melt works better for me. You might need to feel like you need to open up first, and you decide what you need. I like to draw my heels together, and when I'm really tight, I draw them away a little further, and I come into a forward fold. So right now this feels pretty good, so I'm going to invite my heels just a little closer and get into it a little deeper, just a little quicker. And where the blocks come in handy too is you can bring the floor to your forehead rather than your forehead to the floor. And you can rest right there. Taking in deep, long breaths. And try to find some symmetry along your body in the way your hips anchor down. Try to find some symmetry in the way your lungs lift from the back towards the ceiling. And as you become a little more limber, you can decrease the block size or omit it completely. Rolling back. And if you want to start here to begin, you're welcome to. Again, you make this your own. These are just my sequences from my body in the way that I know how to get into it safely. Stretching open the body. And really kind of working with a thoracolumbar fascia, when you side bend. It navigates all the way down into the oblique, and it's just a sheath that draws and lifts and moves. Not just the arm and not just the rib cage, but all the interconnected muscles down the line. And again, I'm attempting to keep my ear in line with my outer thigh, so that I'm still just kind of folding my lung down, feeling my ribs, feeling my oblique, and then switching. And I'm not necessarily always symmetrical in how many I do on each side. So if you find that I did 4 and you need 5, or you need a full complete set on each side, go ahead and do that. Coming into a 90-90, sitting tall first, just finding where my hips are. So finding where your hips are, you might get a nice quadricep stretch here. And it might feel like there's a twist happening here, but really it's opening up of the hip. And as you're ready, lining up your heart in line with the middle shin, coming on down. And again, depending on how tight you are, again, you might need to elevate and make it work for you, your navigation, your journey. And so while I'm here, I'm just kind of navigating the squaring of my shoulders and the lowering of my hips. And it's all just done with a breath, no forcing. Just switch sides. Again, you can stay as long as you like. And so when I'm turning my shoulder, what I'm really doing is I'm kind of looking with my breath and with my mind's eye and feeling what's happening in my lower back, what's happening in my hip. And so this turning is kind of like, I don't know, a little guide, saying, okay, this is where I'm tight in the hip, I'm tight in the sacrum, taking a deep breath. And just with that little bit of twist, it gives me more space to be able to come on down a little easier. Adding a little bit of flexion in the heel, pressing it out, reaching the chest forward. And then just marinating. Coming up and out. I'm going to switch sides again, and I'm going to go this time into a lunge. Roll back the shoulders, hands to the inside. A lizard lunge, knee behind the hip socket, trying to keep a long line with the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And just the swing side to side really helps again, opening up, kind of like if you kind of picture tight hips like a creaky door that's opening, and when you slide side to side, it's like the lubrication, the WD-40, just lubricating, open up the body. I'm going to spin my toes out. That's going to allow my pelvis to sink a little deeper, and then my elbows can connect to the ground. If that's a little too deep for you, you can stay on your hands, or again, you can use a block, and then place your elbow or your forearms on top. Again, I'm swaying side to side, So by rolling side to side, a couple of things are happening. Again, the hips are opening up a little quicker, but also rolling open kind of massages a little bit the quadricep. I can feel how my bone, my femur, is rotating up against the muscle, and it just feels soothing to me. It might not to you, so if it doesn't, don't do it. You really want to feel comfortable here. Again, I'm going to add a twist, so I'm going to take my back hand, apply it above my knee, give myself a twist, exhale to ground down, inhale to lift. And a lot of people like to enter their twists in an exhale, and I actually find that entering my twist with an inhale lifts my lung up, and that's where I feel like I need the assistance. Some people feel like that their assistance is in the exhale because it empties the lungs and it gives a little more added twist, but I actually find the benefit in the opposite direction. I'm going to come on down, and I'm going to switch sides, and ready, instead of just switching, I'm going to turn. Again, hands to the inside, leg to the back, just feeling, lining up the knee directly over the ankle. Again, swing side to side, opening up, softening my eyes, my jaw, my face, spinning the toes out, coming down a little more now. And this is my tight hip, so if you have one hip that's particularly tight, you might find that the swing side to side at first might feel a little more painful, and then you might start to feel how it becomes more of a massage. For instance, my hip is tight for a few reasons, but my oblique really pulls on my pelvis, and it pulls on my psoas, and I feel like just the whole connection of hip to spine, all of the connections kind of shrink. And so the swing side to side just gradually opens and lengthens those fibers again. And my hip slowly starts to slide away from the rib and go back to where it belongs. Again, I'm going to go for the twist, anchoring the front forearm, taking an inhale for me, and then an exhale to ground down. I'm going to come back up, point my toes in line with the front of the mat, anchor my back heel, and just come on down into the parasol, chest in line with inner thigh. And then just by swaying the hip side to side in a pendulum type manner, left and right. And then, like I said, like a pendulum, eventually that pendulum grows heavy and still, and you work to find and navigate your center. Closing your eyes and just breathing from crown to third eye to throat to belly, all the way down to the tailbone, anchoring the heel down. Just finding length in your body and really using the breath as your invitation. Either it's going to say yes or it's going to say that's a little too far, and you really want to pay attention to that. If you want to go a little further, I find that if I point my chin down and lace my hands, I have a little more center of gravity, squeezing the shoulder blades, and breathing, opening up the chest, just finding some limberness a little bit in the spine. Slow release. I'm going to switch sides now. And if you're really, really, really tight, a lot of times lifting the heel up feels a little easier, but I find that anchoring the heel gives me more stability. Again, finding my center, swing the hips, just finding, eventually pausing, just pointing my chin down, lacing my hands. So there's a little bit of hollowing of the lower abdominals. And when you hollow out the lower abdominals, it just feeds the heart forward. And there's just more interconnection of the core towards the spine. And you can kind of float over your center of gravity. It shouldn't be such a struggle. But again, it's a practice, and sometimes finding those little subtle, peaceful centers can become part of the journey. So if you're not there yet, you're struggling, just know that with practice, it'll happen. Releasing on down. Then open up my quadriceps just a little bit, leaning back. So lining up my knees with the hip sockets, rolling back the shoulders. And by squeezing my butt and kind of lifting my pelvis up, I press my knees down and it opens up where I'm sorest, which is really the lowest part. Coming back in. Now I'm going to use a block. And in Tittibhasana, we have the hip flexor really being squeezed, and the block helps mimic that squeezing. And so that's where we're going to go. And on top of that, it lengthens the hamstring, which is also something we need. So I'm going to take my front leg, line up my knee over the ankle, and I'm going to just navigate my back knee. So for some of you, you're feeling a stretch here, or maybe even here. And for some of you, you really need to navigate your knee a little further. Notice I'm using my hand to help keep my knee close to my chest. Just working with my pelvis and my sacrum, keeping it safe. And as the hip begins to open, I can begin to almost like tuck the tailbone just a little bit. And notice the difference between an untucked tailbone and a tucked tailbone. You can open up just a little bit more to the hip flexor. Again, if you want to open up a little more, lift up the back leg. And again, I'm drawing the knee in towards my chest. My chest is reaching through midline. The center of my heart is in line with my inner thighs. I'm looking down. My grounded hand, that shoulder blade is rolled back. My belly is braced. I'm going to come on down to my knee. Inhale, lift up my chest. Again, tucking the tailbone just helps open up the pelvis a little more. Can make a side bend or a twist, whatever you really need. I find I need everything. So again, reaching on down, feeling the side open. And since we have the leg elevated, it might be a little hard to touch the ground. So if you need a block underneath you, or if you feel stable and safe, you might not need one. I'm going to switch sides. This side won't go very far, but I want to see what that feels like. So I'm going to use my back hand to anchor, using my inner thigh, just look on down. Lacing the hands, opening up the chest again. I'm kind of sliding my thumbs down my inner thigh. Since my inner thigh is in line with my heart, if my inner thighs and my thumb are connected, then my heart is still in line with my inner thigh, theoretically. Coming on down now. Releasing on out. I'm going to switch sides. Again, you can stay in it as long as you need. This is just my sequencing for my body. Lifting my knee up now. lower side bend on the other side. See how that feels. And noticing again the back leg, if you spin the inner thigh up, it'll help keep the knee in line with the hip socket. Releasing the hands, growing the back bend. Coming back up. Oh, so I'm going to just kind of shake it out, come into a down dog. I'm going to turn on this side. So you shake out your down dog in any way you need. You can spin the toes, pivot on the edges, swing your hips, opening up your obliques. And if you pedal the knees, it gives you an opportunity to anchor possibly one heel by lifting the other. Bracing the lower abs and kind of feeling like the armpit flaps open. So it's not just a squeezing of the shoulder blades, you're not crushing the shoulder blades. You're just kind of like moving the wings open and closed, and you just find what navigates, what works best for you. So again, kind of like using the pendulum, finding your center. Here you just kind of flap your wings, and you find where you feel most stable here and where your shoulders feel best. So working shoulder stabilization, pretty important for the little inversion. Go ahead and lift up a leg, it doesn't matter which leg. Bend the knee, spin it up to the sky. And here's where we're going to play. Just take the hand that is being pressed down harder, continue to press it down harder. The opposite hand is going to begin to lift. And I'm just opening up the side body. So my grounded foot, those toes are going to slightly spin on the edge, just a little bit. And I'm going to come into like a side plank, and I'm kind of flirting with the floor with my foot. So, toes tap, I'm opening up my chest, and I'm trying to float my foot up, just to work a little bit more stabilization, make it a little more challenging. And then coming back in. And switching. And this just feels so good in the space between the rib and the hip. That's what we're opening up. So yeah, there's a lot of work here in the shoulders, and the opposite oblique is working, it's engaged. But the oblique facing the sky feels really good. It's opening up. Slowly unwinding. Taking a lunge. Coming into full pigeon now. Lengthening my back leg. Again, just checking in that it's in line. Heel, knee, hip. And you can take the heel, you can draw it out, or you can draw it in, depending on what you need, depending on your mobility. Everyone is different. But again, because I'm so tight in the TFL and along the piriformis, I find that kind of swaying side to side is very helpful. And then I feel ready to come on down. And you decide when you're ready to come on down. And there's that WD-40 action again, the swing side to side. And I kind of like to find the little points that feel the tightest, and then pause. So right here, I'm kind of leaning towards the wall. That's where I'm tightest, so I'm going to breathe right there. So it's kind of like seek and open, moving a millimeter at a time, a breath at a time. And really, you're just this unfolding. You are unfolding. And a lot of times we can be so wrinkled in so many places inside. We can have so many nooks and crannies where there's all these folds in our body contracting. And we're trying to create this pose that creates a length, and we need all of the length of our body to be able to come into the pose. And so all of the length of my body that I can possibly have today, sweetly, is where this yoga practice is going. And I hope you're feeling sweet about the way you're moving as well. I'm going to go for a twist here. Again, you can place a block under your head if it's too elevated. I like to place a fist underneath my head using my free hand. And just breathing into your lower back, softening your eyes, softening your jaw. And notice where you're tight. A lot of times it's not necessarily the place that you're working. A lot of times the resistance is along the face, along the temples, the forehead. And so invite softness into those places, and then notice how you're muscularly holding on or gripping into the hip area. And see if you can let go, just with a request of just please let go a little bit. Thank you. Inhale, coming up, I'm going to twist my opposite arm, my front arm underneath, drawing my ear down, clasping my hands, lengthening my arms and really pushing my chest away from my hands. Inhale, coming back up. And I'm going to switch sides. Just working into a way that feels slow and comfortable. Nothing has to be rushed. And your personal yoga practice doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It just has to feel good in a way that invites you to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And you'll start to peel layers of your resistance away. You'll start to really feel just the unfolding of your thoughts. Breathing into the lower back. Using my inhale to lift up, my exhale to thread my front arm towards the back wall. Noticing a really deep inhale creates a floating and a lingering, opening up the pocket of the hip. And then the exhale grounds down. It feels so lovely. Switching sides, inhale to lift. Exhale to lower on down. Again, I have my knuckles or my hands laced. I'm lengthening my arms and I'm pushing my chest away. So my top shoulder is stacking over my bottom shoulder. I'm trying to roll my front hip down. Pressing my head away really just creates a nice long spine all the way from the base to the crown. Meanwhile, my oblique is opening up because I'm on my side. Coming back out slowly. I'm going to go for a little bit of vinyasa. And again, feel free to shake out the hips. That's a lot on the hips there. I find if I tuck the chin and if I lift my heels, I start the wave from the hips, pushing through the shoulders, tucking the chin, and then slowly unraveling the wave, bracing the belly. Then I'm going to reverse that, tucking the chin, drawing everything back up, and then possibly drawing the heels as close to the ground as I can. Again, another wave, lifting the heels, feeling the rolling of the spine, one vertebra at a time, opening up. It's kind of like ironing out the wrinkles along the spine. And then coming back to the tucked chin, bracing. So there's a lot of effort and there's a lot of sweetness in the back. The sweetness is in the back of the body closest to the ceiling, and the work is in the core, the part closest to the floor. I'm going to roll into full vinyasa. Untucking my toes now, squeezing my shoulder blades, drawing up into a cobra nice and slow, and then unwinding a couple more times. Imagining there's a rope from the crown connected to the heart, connected to the belly. Holding here to up dog, pushing through the hands evenly, not just the palms, but the fingers as well. And just swaying side to side. Tucking toes, exhale, pushing into down dog. I'm going to take another lunge. Inhaling through legged dog, lunging the leg to the inside, lowering my knee down. Now I'm going to lift up my heel. So you can see my heel's lifted and I'm trying to line up my knee right over my ball of the foot. When I do that, I'm able to slide my shoulder under the knee. So I'm going to do it on this side first so you can see what I'm doing. So lifting up the heel, sliding my shoulder underneath. I'm going to bump my hip up and anchor my back heel down. So my hands are underneath my shoulders. They're not wide. They're directly under my shoulders, giving me support. And then I can just shift forward and back. Forward and back. Lifting my back heel, scoring my hips, and just feeling how that feels. Dropping the knee back down. I'm going to turn again, just so you can see what that looks like. Taking a nice long lunge, knee behind hip if possible, lifting the heel high if possible, and sliding the shoulder underneath. So making any adjustments, sometimes we have to just manually move our flesh, move our muscle, move our body, so that we can get into position. Then lift the leg, anchor the heel down. I'm going to come on down now. So this is also really good prep for Ekapada Kundalini. Maybe I'll show that in a bit. Since we're open, might as well try another yoga pose. Opening opening up into Baddha Konasana, this is a nice frame of reference since this is how we started. And doing a pose more than once throughout your yoga sequence kind of gives you that frame of reference of how well you've opened or if you're still feeling tight. So we're going to take this frame of reference just a little wider. It's the same concept, except now we've lengthened the legs. You can point the toes up, you can point them down, give them a twirl. I'm anchoring my hips down, just feeling symmetry. And now I'm going to come down into a forward fold. So this pose is going to mimic already the pose basically we're trying to come into. If you notice, the legs are long, they're wide. If you have tight hamstrings, you're going to find that when you come into your forward fold, your knees are going to lift. And that's okay, that's fine. But you'll also find that when you try to enter the pose, your knees are going to be bent as well. So don't worry about it, it's okay, you know, it's just your body navigating through what it's got. So again, the other thing, what might happen is your body might round as you're coming forward, and a lot of times it's just because your hip sockets are hitting, you know, and the femur's hitting the hip socket or the pelvis is hitting, and you just can't come any further. So that might just be the tapestry of your body, and it's okay. A lot of times we think it's flexibility, and that's not the only factor. So coming on down, again, feeling free to use a block, high, medium, low, or none at all. And I find the swaying side to side is just really helpful. It kind of shifts the flesh out of the way, the flesh that's in the way of the hip socket. I kind of have meaty legs. I'm a meaty girl, and so, you know, for you meaty girls out there, lots of WD-40 turning. And again, just finding, kind of seeking and lengthening. Seeking, I'm looking for places of tension. And it's not the depth for me, and if it is for you, then that's where you're going to stay. You stay in your depth. Again, where I find it is in my back, my lower back, and in my oblique. And already it feels so much better. My range of motion just feels even more sweet now. So again, drawing the knees in. I'm going to give myself a little twist, drawing the knees in together, lifting up the chest nice and tall. Drawing in the lower abdominals, threading the back arm in front of the front thigh. And just sitting tall, so again, if you tend to round down, lift up the chest, and if you need to walk your legs further away and decompress, you'll find that you have more space. So again, making this work for you. Inhaling, switching sides. Coming back in, shaking out. So nearing towards the end now, kind of figuring out what works. I call this cradling the baby. I'm sure there's some beautiful, elegant word out there for it, but I call it cradling the baby. Again, if this doesn't work for you, holding underneath the thigh, or even maybe holding here or here. It's basically a similar pose, or just opening up, externally rotating the femur. And then swaying side to side, lengthens the side of the body, the side of the hip. Now remember to sit as tall as you can. So if you're rounding down again, it's okay to extend the leg further away and to lift up the chest. Working on the other side. flaring the toes. And it's interesting to note, the things that happen. So this whole externally rotating, we're getting into the hip right here. But if you notice the little things, like how you settle the shoulders, how you clasp the fingers, where the toes angle, those little kind of details start to give you a little bit more information too of how to just further progress in your practice. You'll start to notice, I was tight there, and if I just kind of rotate my toes up, I'll get just a little deeper, sweeter lengthening. And like this knee for me tends to lift, and when I anchor it, I just again feel grounded, and I get a little more extra, a little extra. I'm going to land my heel into a modified half lotus. Again, you can make this more of a sukhasana if you need to, or you can take the heel towards the shin. Inhaling, lifting up. I'm going to spread the chest forward. And I'm just going to kind of sway side to side, like I said earlier, looking for points of tension. Drawing my knee down as I do, especially as I approach the opposite side. And I'm feeling pretty good here, so I feel ready to go ahead and come on down to my forearms. I'm using my tricep, and I'm planting it up against the heel of my, or the arch of my foot. It just kind of fits there like a puzzle. It just lands nicely. Again, taking my knee, drawing it down, turning my chest. And once I arrive, it's nice to take a few breaths, but also kind of notice where I'm holding tension needlessly, like the shoulders, the back of the neck, my forehead, between my eyebrows. Inhale, coming on up and switching sides. Again, reaching, sliding side to side. And that arc is going to be as wide as you're comfortable, and as wide as you're mobile. And it's nice to not have any expectations of how high you are or how low you are. Just feel, just navigate your body, navigate your breath. If you're feeling ready with me, you can come on over. Again, line up your tricep in line with the arch. Drawing the lower abdominals in. Again, finding the wrinkles along the front of the body, so that it can open up and bloom forward. Drawing my back knee down, softening the face. This time I'm going to draw the knee back. So I just have the opposite heel in towards the body. I'm still sitting tall, so there's no rounding in the shoulders of the lower back. I'm sitting as tall as I can in my body. And for you, if that means you have to slide your hand closer up your body and do that, then that's fine, no worries. So you're accommodating this pose for you. The point is to draw the knee back, because again, in Tittibhasana, we're going to draw the knee over our shoulder. So just preparation here. And then taking it just a little bit wider, a little bit further, using the opposite hand and reaching across the leg. I'm going to draw my arm to the inside and just kind of help fold my leg over my shoulder. Again, working to sit tall. You can't really tell on the camera, but I'm working to sit tall. Twirling my ankle. Again, these little things, gosh, just opening up the calf muscle and even the shin. And we are going to be pointing the toes or struggling to point the toes. So opening up the shin now feels really good. Again, taking the opposite hand to the outer edge of the foot. Again, you don't have to do this. This could be where you stop, right? This could be your point A and you want to stop here, that's fine. If you want to go a little further, you're going to take the leg out. I use my hand as a kickstand to kind of stop the energy because I'm going to roll over if I don't. And draw the opposite shoulder behind my head. I'm pressing my head up into my shoulder so I can sit tall, kicking my heels energy up towards the corner of the ceiling. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this pretzel pose allows me to open up my oblique. So the part that is opening up would be from the rib to the hip area. And of course the armpit is opening up. But that's not why I do it for me. I'm doing it specifically for my hip. And not the one of the lifted leg, the one of the lowered leg. That's what's opening. Now using my front shoulder, rolling it back. And now that's very similar to the pose that we're going to be coming into, right? Our leg is going to be coming across our shoulder. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1. Unwinding and then switching sides. Again, drawing the knee in. Taking my shoulder, tucking it under. Holding. Trying to sit as tall as I can. And as you're ready, if you want to try it on this side, just because you couldn't do it on the other side doesn't mean the side can't do it. We're not symmetrical necessarily. One side's tighter than the other. All right, reaching across the outer edge of the foot, drawing my hand down for stability, kind of curling my head in front of my shoulder, kicking energy out through the heel, rolling back my front shoulder, trying to sit as tall as I can for my body. And this is where the breath comes in. So if you really breathe deeply into the point of tension, for me it's my waistline and my lower back. My oblique, I just got a great pop just by breathing deeply, and that felt lovely. And slowly unwinding. All right. So now we have 2 blocks, or you have 2 books, or none at all. You don't have to have blocks or books. But it does make it more accessible to come into the pose. And again, this is about elevating the floor rather than, I don't know if you can see I have 2 blocks here. It's about elevating the floor rather than you going down to the floor. So I'm just going to demo it this way at first and then do it the other way without the blocks. So you want to line up the blocks under your shoulders, and you don't want to be wide, you don't want to be too narrow, you want to be under the shoulders. And if you think about how everything comes from just alignment base, you want the middle finger pointing forward. And of course, depending on how your shoulders rotate and everything, everyone has little changes that they have to do. I find for me, my body, middle finger pointing forward, palms pressing down, and hands just as equally, fingertips just as equally pressing down. So, ungracefully, coming forward, stepping in. So I'm coming wide, I'm bending my elbows till they're about 90 degrees. And you want to keep your elbows stacked right over the wrist crease. So when you're bending the elbow, you want to keep it right over the wrist crease. So I don't know if you can see, just like if you were coming into a tricep push-up, yeah? It's the same concept. And when you bend the elbow, you automatically create a platform. So that platform is where your hips are going to land. Your gaze is forward, your chest is opening up. And this is where it's not graceful, it's not necessarily pretty. And it's okay, don't worry about it. So once you feel comfortable and you're sitting down, see if you can kind of scoot your hips further up your legs, or your legs further up your arms. You don't want to pass 90-degree bend in your wrist crease. You want to maintain that, yeah? And my toes are pointing down and my heels are lifting just to create this space here. So again, you can begin to play with lifting up one leg, play with lifting up the other. And again, some of you might be here really comfortable. It might be fine to draw your heels together. Or you can continue to press forward, brace to the core. And I'm applying pressure of my legs to my arms and my arms to my legs. Bracing the lower abs and just reaching forward. And that's not so pretty because I actually find it kind of hard on walks. But a lot of people find it much more negotiable that way. So I'm going to show you my entry. And it's not pretty, but it feels good. So I take my legs up and over. And this is where it gets a little hard because I have to balance. So just being here, tucking in my chin, already preps my lower back. I'm breathing in deeply into my upper back. And I'm feeling how my spine feels. I'm just noticing what's going on in there. Nice. So I'm going to climb my leg, sliding off just a little bit. I'm going to climb it back in. I'm going to press my hands down. They're still shoulder width apart, and the middle finger is still pointing forward. So as I just hold here, hang tight, push myself up, reach my legs forward, brace through the core, and I'm really working. Pushing the chest, pointing the toes, and there you go. That's one of the options. Or you can just hang tight here and play. So that's all the preparation that I need to take in order to come into that pose. And I can come into the pose, like I said, without the prep, but it feels like I don't know, I'd rather wash dishes. And then I was telling you that we could come into another pose since we're so open. If you want to play, you can go ahead and come with me. So there's two ways that people do it. One, remember how we did the lunge? And we climbed the shoulder underneath. I'm going to do it on this side. Climb the shoulder underneath. Yeah. Hands are shoulder width apart. Chest is pressing forward. Now I'm lifting up my back leg. And I'm just going to try to float. Bending the elbows, looking for symmetry. Bracing through the core. And then you could come on down. And then the other side. That side felt hard today. Doesn't typically feel that hard, but it felt hard today. Again, trying this side, bending the elbows, reaching forward. And just flying. And coming on down. So I hope this helped you. I hope if anything else, you feel like your hip flexors are open, your hips are more open. And there's no wrong or right way to necessarily get into the pose, as long as you just keep your alignment and just try. And don't let frustration be the voice in your head. Don't let it dominate. You just want to have some fun. Have some fun with what your body can do. And it doesn't matter what age you are. You know, you just keep practicing, and you'll surprise yourself. All right, guys. I hope that was good for you. It was good for me. Have a good one. Good night.